I finally read the first book in the Malazan series. G'day to all you lovely people and welcome back to my channel. I'm Kathy and today I want to talk about this. Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson, the first book in the Malazan of the Fallen series. As you can see, this is a mass paperback. I could not find it in a different edition. Most likely because this was published in 1999 and this is Erikson's first book. And in fact, he had a lot of trouble getting this published. I think it took him 8 years. The series, though, is 10 books. And this is definitely high epic fantasy. I think some people also refer to it as dark fantasy, but I would argue most fantasy has dark elements. Okay. I've known about the Malazan series for several years, but it's only recently, I think in the last month, that I finally read Gardens of the Moon, and I decided to review it. Before I start the review, I wanted to address a concern, I guess, that some people have regarding Gardens of the Moon. I've seen many people say that they are intimidated by starting this series because it is considered complicated, complex, confusing, has a large cast of characters, and it can be difficult to figure out what is going on. This is also something that the author mentioned in the foreword to the book. He stated that apparently many people give up on the book, I think, third of the way in because they find it too complicated because he does not explain things. Basically, you are just plunged into this world and you're expected to work it out as you read it. Now, of course, not every book is going to appeal to every reader. However, personally, I really liked that I was not spoon-fed everything. Perhaps that's also because I love murder mysteries and I like trying to work out who a killer is in a book. I really enjoyed unraveling this book as well, trying to work out who was who were the good guys, if there are any, who are the bad guys, what certain events signified, what the politics are, what loyalties some of the characters have. I like to have some mystery attached to the story to make me work at figuring out what is going on. But I also wanted to say that I don't think this is excessively complicated. I think it takes time, yes, but there is a payoff, which is worth it. It is not a book that will not answer some of your questions. Maybe not all of them, but you don't expect that in a first book in a long series. Now I wanted to talk about what Gardens of the Moon is about, as well as get into the writing, the world building, the magical system, the characters, the plot, pacing, etc. I'll quote you just a little bit of the back of the book. Bled dry by interminable warfare, infighting and bloody confrontations with Lord Anomander Rake, the Malazan Empire simmers with discontent. Its legions yearn for some respite. In a short and very significant prologue, we are introduced to Paran, a young noble son who is watching a part of a city burn. We also meet a soldier of the Empire and Lasine, a sorceress of the Empire, who created an elite force of assassins called the Claw. Then we skip ahead several years where we learn that the Emperor has been overthrown and that Lasine is now Empress of Malazan. And we come to this small village, I'm not sure exactly where it is, where a significant scene between a young girl and two travellers occurs, and also a massacre. Paran, this young boy, is now a soldier in the Malazan Empire, and he meets Adjunct Lorne, who is a warrior for the Empress. Adjunct Lorne decides to take Perrin on as an aide, I guess. Again, a significant scene that we will see play out in the future. We then jump to the city of Pale, which is under siege by the Malazan Empire. Pale is in alliance with Anomander Rake, a Tist Andi, or Andy, who is in control of this cloud moonspawn which hovers over the city of Pale. The city does fall, and then we learn that the Empress has turned her eyes towards the ancient city or citadel of Darajistan, one of the last free cities of Genabacchus. I think that's right. I'm sure I'm going to get some of these names wrong, so forgive me for that because I have no idea how anything is pronounced. But personally, that is my favorite thing about fantasy. You can make up your own pronunciations. That is, I guess, a summary of the plot, which is similar to what the back of the book states. I will get into further detail regarding the plot without spoilers a little bit later. As for the writing, Erikson is an excellent writer. He's also highly educated, so I guess that's no surprise, but he also has a great grasp of language. I really loved some of his descriptive prose. It was not flowery or purple prose, it was sometimes extremely evocative. It gave me a great visual of what he was describing. I also found his dialogue sharp and taut, without any real bloating. It gave me a good indication of who some of the characters were, for example. He is an excellent writer, and whilst he doesn't explain much throughout the book, I still could read between the lines on occasion. Yeah, there were times that I would have been lost because basically we are just dropped into this world and trying to figure out what is going on. But that confusion was not because of the writing. It was simply that I was in this strange, bizarre new world. As for the world building, yeah, I loved the world that he has created because it is so complicated and complex. It involves gods and ascendants. It involves several different cultures and groups and races. It has several ancient races and magical creatures. It has the Tist Andi, which I would love to learn a lot more about. It also has a very rich history that we are kind of given bits and pieces of as we progress through the book. But I loved the world building. I found it unique in many ways, things that I haven't seen in any other fantasy, particularly his magical system, which I will come to in a moment. It is not reminiscent of our own world. It is something quite different. And that is one thing that I absolutely love in fantasies, when I can't recognize my world in the one I'm reading about. And all of these elements together just make this world feel very fleshed out, very well thought out as well. And I cannot wait to learn more about it, especially the history of this world and how it came about. As for the magical system, it involves warrens, which I have never seen anything like it, but I really love this idea. A warren is like, I think, a portal that opens into another dimension. And there is still a lot of mystery attached to these warrens, but I've never read anything like that. So for me, that was really intriguing. And it seems there are different kinds of warrens as well. Yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more about them in future books. As for the characters, yeah. The main characters I would say would be Whiskey Jack and his bridge burners, several of his bridge burners. There is Perrin, of course. There is Adjunct Lorne. There is Dujik, who is the commander of the Malazan army. There is Sari, a young girl, a ruthless killer, basically. Then there are some gods as well, such as Shadow Throne and Cotillion and Opon and Opon. I don't know how to pronounce that. And of course there are sorceresses as well. The main one that we meet is Tattersail. Yeah, unfortunately, that always reminds me of Tattersalls, which is a company in Australia that sells lottery tickets. I kept thinking of that every time I read it. But even so, she was a very interesting character, and I really liked her character, actually. She was much more mysterious than you are led to believe in the beginning. As we got to know her more, we learned that she is complicated, she is complex, and she is very clever at times, I thought. As for Whiskey Jack, I loved Whiskey Jack. I think everyone loves Whiskey Jack. I'm assuming everyone would love him. Here we have a soldier who was very loyal to the empire of Malazan, who is sidelined, who is ignored, who basically has to fight for his soldiers to survive. He is very loyal to his soldiers, and they are to him, fanatically so even. And I can understand it. He seems to try to do always what is best for them. But this is a character that, whilst I don't understand fully quite yet, I have a very good sense of who he is. Then there is Perrin, Adjunct Lorne's aide. He is a character who has gone through many things during the course of this first book, and initially I thought he might be an entitled noble son, but as time progressed you see him change and evolve and develop, and that is what I want to see in my characters. I thought he was also well drawn. Adjunct Lorne, I will confess I hated her. I really did. But she had reasons for being who she was. She was, I think, sometimes a little too blinded by her allegiance to the Empress. She was inflexible at times and fanatical, I think, at others, and too quick to dismiss any doubts she had because it would have conflicted with her role as the adjunct. Then we have Anomander Rake, the Lord of Moonspawn. Now, he was an interesting character because when we first meet him, he is the enemy of Malazan, and we are given to believe that he is just a ruthless and very powerful figure. But when we meet him later on, we get to see a different side of him. And that is something I really enjoyed about this book, is you get to see different perspectives of characters who we are initially told are one thing, and then as we get to know the character, we learn that they may not be quite what we were led to believe in the beginning. This book is very murky. There's no real clear bad guys or good guys. There are many shades in between. And other characters that we met are from Darujhistan, this citadel that is under threat by the Malazan Empire. And when we skipped from Pale to then Darujhistan, initially I resented it a little. I didn't want to read about these new characters, but as I got to know them, as I got to know the Darujhistan, people like Baruch and Crocus and Murillo, Ralik, and Krupi in particular, I really grew attached to these characters because now we are getting the perspective of citizens of Darujhistan who know very well that Malazan is looking to invade them, to conquer them. And I found myself barracking for them. I found myself wanting them to succeed against the Malazan Empire, against characters who I had grown attached to, like Whiskey Jack and Perrin and Tattersail. And I was surprised as I went through the book because I became so conflicted. I wanted Whiskey Jack to survive, but I also wanted the Darajistans to survive. And I thought, how am I going to reconcile this if one kills the other? But perhaps that was the author's aim, to divide our loyalties, because he definitely succeeded with me. And I think that says a lot about Erikson's writing, that he made me get attached to both sides of the conflict, where I didn't want either to fail. Yeah. I guess that then leads me on to the plot, without any spoilers. As I said, we do spend a bit of time in Pale, meeting Whiskey Jack and Tattersall and the others, and all the plots within the Malazan Empire. We then move to Darajistan, where we see the perspective of the citizens there and their attempts to try to, I guess, mollify Malazan or find a solution to holding back the Malazan Empire from invading or conquering their city. And whilst I thought I knew what was going to happen, in the end, the author really did surprise me. And I really liked the ending personally. And I liked that this plot was not easy to predict. It did surprise me many times where it went. What happened to certain characters surprised me as well. And that is something I want in my books, to be surprised, to not be able to predict everything that's going to happen. I cannot say I predicted this book. No, not at all. I thought the pacing was good. It was even, but this is not a book to rush through because there is so much to learn about this world. You need to take your time. That way you can work out what is going on, who has loyalty to whom, what are the plots within plots. The writing is also dense, so it is not a quick read because there is so much jam-packed into this first book. Overall, I don't really have any criticisms of this book, though I do recognize it may not be to everyone's taste because it does take some time to work out what is going on. So let's summarize. I loved Gardens of the Moon. I think the longer I have sat with it, the more I've learned to love it for how complex it is. I love how rich it is, how much more I can look forward to learning about it. Whilst it might be difficult for some people to get into at the beginning, if you give it time, you will be well rewarded. That is my feeling anyway. However, this will not be suitable for all fantasy readers. If you want everything explained, this is not the book for you. If you don't like complicated or convoluted plots, then this will not be for you. But if you enjoy learning about a very rich world that has been extremely well thought out, if you enjoy trying to figure out what is going on in a book, then I believe you will love Gardens of the Moon. As for a score, I would give Gardens of the Moon 7 to 7.5 out of 10. And I am definitely going to read the next book, and I presume I'm going to love that as well, and I will read the entire series. But now, of course, I would love to hear from you guys. Have you read Gardens of the Moon? What are your thoughts on it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? You know, I always want to hear your opinions, and you can let me know down in the comments, or you can contact me on Instagram. Well, thank you all very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, then you can do the usual. You can like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I also have a Patreon account if you wish to support me that way. We buddy read a book every month, as well as just talk generally about books and life and things like that. I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I will see you next time. Bye. I wanted to thank all my patrons, but a big shout out to my book dragons, Laurie, Michael, Gabriella, Yavanka, Joe, and Johanna.